My question's to the Prime Minister. In 2012, the now Prime Minister gave a speech in Parliament promising to oppose legislation, and I quote, on the basis that it is retrospective. Why won't the Prime Minister now rule out retrospective changes to negative gearing? Or, put another way, why won't new Malcolm just agree with old Malcolm?
The Leader of the House will cease interjecting. The Leader of the House will cease interjecting. The Treasurer has the call. Members on my left will cease interjecting. The Treasurer has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I thank the Prime Minister for the opportunity to respond in relation to negative gearing, Mr Speaker. And because one of the key issues around negative gearing that those opposite have liked to raise was the issue of fairness, Mr Speaker, and they think that somehow this is going to create some greater fairness. But I wonder if they've contemplated this scenario, Mr Speaker, and they raise these issues in the context of fairness, Mr Speaker. But is it fair, Mr Speaker, for, say, a part-time teacher in Fairfield in Western Sydney, in the member for McMahon's electorate, for someone who wants to return to work in the second half of next year, if they were to be successful at the next election, after she's had children, and they go back and they buy an investment property which would be denied under them to offset the net rental losses, Mr Speaker. They'd have a salary of some $40,000 a year. Under their policy, Mr Speaker, they would not be able to negative gear that property they've bought to secure the future of their family. That's what happens under their policy with an existing property, Mr Speaker. But consider, Mr Speaker, say someone in the member for Sydney's electorate, a senior executive, Mr Speaker, earning, say, $600,000 a year in a cash salary, but more importantly, pulling down some $75,000 in dividends.
The Treasurer will resume his seat. The members for Lyons and Deakin will cease interjecting. The Minister for Resources will cease interjecting. The Leader of the Opposition on a point of order.
It is. It's on the point of order of relevance. This is the fifth question we've asked the Prime Minister on retrospectivity. Why can't he just rule it in or out? Why is he hiding?
The Leader of the Opposition will resume his seat. The member for Braddon will cease interjecting. The member for Herbert was right in blaming him that time. The Treasurer is relevant to the answer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. So we have the part-time teacher who wanted to buy an investment property and negative gear the rental losses. They can't do that under their policy. But the banking executive living in the member for Sydney's electorate, who could have $50,000, $75,000 worth of share dividends, under their policy, if they go and buy an investment property, an existing property, under their policy, they can negative gear it, Mr Speaker. They can negative gear it. They can. Now, this is probably just one of the many things that the member for McMahon and the Leader of the Opposition didn't talk about when they weren't talking about negative gearing on their side, Mr Speaker. What the policy says is you can negative gear against investment income, Mr Speaker, but not on a wage and salary earning. You can't write it off. You can't write it off. So whether it's on fairness, Mr Speaker, whether it's on the issue of the mayhem it would create in the property markets, Mr Speaker, where if you buy a new property, the minute you put the key in the door under their policy, Mr Speaker, the minute you put the key in the door, it becomes an old property, and you can't sell it to one out of the three people who would have previously bought it. Under their policy, it's like driving a new car off the lot, Mr Speaker. They just have not thought it through. And that's why, Mr Speaker, when it comes to tax policy, they cannot be trusted to manage the transitioning economy that this side of the House can.